Friday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here, back for another day. Hope you guys are all having a great day out there and are ready for a great show. A couple different guests today. Kent Youngblood joins me in a little while to talk Lynx. Huge opportunity for them upcoming. WNBA playoffs start Sunday. Lynx versus Phoenix. First game at Target Center, 4 p.m. Sunday. Going to be quite a Sunday in Twin City sports. Vikings against Texans at noon, U.S. Bank Stadium. And then probably about an hour after that one ends, other side of downtown, Lynx versus Mercury, Game 1. Kent and I will break down the Lynx season so far, who might be in line for postseason honors for the Lynx, who finished their season Thursday, lost at home, but resting their best players, locked into that 2 seed. Opportunity ahead, not just for a nice season, but for a playoff run for potentially a championship, adding to their championship legacy. This would be their 5th this year, but a lot of work to do, a lot of really good teams in front of them. Kent and I will break that down. Ryan Kostecka, our sports editor at the Star Tribune, will join me too. Fantasy football on our minds. We are starting a new thing, picking 3 players, going head-to-head each week, having some fun with it, so stick around for that after I talk to Kent. First, though, what did I miss? Theme of the first part of the show today is the 50-50 Club. Shohei Ohtani, the Twins, and the Vikings. 50-50 Club. Twins get that distinction, unfortunately, because now they are in a spot where it feels like the playoffs are 50-50, a coin flip after basically being a near certainty. They were up at like 95% likelihood of making the playoffs a week or two ago when it seemed like maybe they had kind of righted the ship. They have not done that. Another walk-off loss to Cleveland on Thursday afternoon. The Twins and Tigers now tied for the final wildcard spot, identical 80 and 73 records. The Twins do hold that precious tiebreaker against Detroit, so if the Twins and Tigers both go 5-4 down the stretch to finish with 85 wins, the Twins will sneak into the playoffs and be that team, provided that nobody else jumps ahead of them with an even hotter stretch of play. That would be unlikely. So, the 50-50 Club, they went from being near certainties to being kind of in this spot now where they're going to have to battle for it. And I really do feel like they are in a tenuous place, both from the standing standpoint and from kind of where they have to be, both mentally and fatigue-wise. Had to use a bunch of relief pitchers again on Thursday. They've got this series on against Boston starting Friday, 3 more games on the road. Then they do finally get an off day in there on Monday to kind of reset before those final 6 games at home against the Marlins and the Orioles. The Tigers, meanwhile, have 3 at Baltimore this weekend. That's big. Baltimore's, not been going great lately, but that is a playoff team. Twins have to play them later this year. Like I said, final series of the season. The Twins have to hope right now that when they play Baltimore, Baltimore doesn't have much to play for and is maybe resting some of its key players for a playoff series, whereas right now Baltimore still hanging on to a thought of winning the division and certainly hanging on to the idea of finishing with the best wild card record and having home field in that opening round of the playoffs. So Twins could be catching Baltimore at the right time. Detroit could be catching Baltimore at the wrong time. Twins have to hope for that. They need some help this weekend. I think this is a big weekend. Twins at Red Sox. Red Sox like clinging to any shred of hope to get back in the race. Twins can slam the door on that with a win tonight. That could set the tone for the whole series. Twins want to come out of this weekend no worse than still tied, ideally at 1 game ahead now of Detroit, because in those final 6, they're both home for their final 6, but Detroit has the cushier schedule. They get to play Tampa Bay, which is pretty much out of it. They'll give them a good effort, but Tampa Bay, and then Detroit gets the last 3 against the White Sox, a team that cannot wait for a historically bad season to end. Those are almost like 3 potential guaranteed wins for Detroit in those final 3. The Twins need to go into the final weekend of the season with some sort of lead. one game even, so that they know that if they take 2 out of 3, they're going to take the spot in the race. But here's the problem: the Twins are not playing well right now. They haven't been playing well for the last month. They were 70-53 a month ago. They have gone 10-20 since then. As Royce wrote today in kind of his ode to the collapse of 40 years ago that feels very familiar this year, he has a harder time thinking of how they got to 70-53 than he does thinking about how they played the last month. His point, and I think it's a good one, is that I think this team overachieved for a while. It's definitely underachieved to go 10-20 in this last stretch, but do they have a good 9-game stretch in them? Can they go 6-3 in these last 9? I mean, they can. We've seen them do that. We've seen them turn it around at different points in the year, but they have definitely gotten themselves into the spot where I think a playoff spot is a coin flip, and it's only a coin flip because they have that tiebreaker. If they didn't have the tiebreaker, I would not love their chances at all right now. So 50-50 for the Twins. 50-50 for Shohei Ohtani means something entirely different. 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, actually 51-51. He had a monster game on Thursday. 3 home runs, a couple of steals, 10 RBIs, 6 for 6, including 2 doubles. He had 17 total bases in the game. What else can you say besides generational talent? You know how he's such a great pitcher. Like, hey, he had to have Tommy John surgery, can still play, can still hit this year. And oh, by the way, because he can't do both, he's just going to have a 50-50 season, the first in Major League Baseball history. We used to think 40-40 was a big deal. We used to think 30-30 was pretty cool. 50-50 for Shohei Ohtani. And I know it's maybe a little bit easier to steal a base now because of the new pickoff rules, things like that. Still, you hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases, you are putting yourself in conversation for one of the greatest seasons and one of the greatest players of all time. By the way, I thought about Tony Voda, the guest on our show a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, who had a chance to catch the Ohtani grand slam ball that gave him his 40-40 season. Dropped it, the whole story. It was a great story. He was a fun guest to have on. Reading for the ESPN story, said the fan who secured the baseball on the home run from the 50-50 club, left the ballpark with it in his hand, denying Ohtani a well-earned piece of memorabilia. So the fan who got the ball is keeping the ball. Interesting side note on that. Now, to finish this 50-50 train of thought, Vikings, start of the year, saw all sorts of prognostications, all sorts of predictions. I was one of them, said, this isn't going to be a great team. 6 wins, 7 wins. If you squint, maybe 8, maybe 9. Fringe playoff team, but probably not. ESPN's Football Power Index gave them like a 15% chance of making the playoffs, had them at like 6.5, 7 wins. I think 6.5 was their over-under number as well. Just looked at the Football Power Index after the 2-0 start, up to a projected 9.3 wins now, not just because they won these 2, but because by winning those 2, you kind of get a sense of their strength. 52% chance of making the playoffs, pretty much in a coin flip situation to make the playoffs, a 50-50 chance of making the playoffs, a decent shot to win the division. They are leading the division right now. The only 2-0 team is probably them, Detroit and Green Bay, given about an equal chance right now by the Football Power Index. A lot of football to play, of course, 15 games left, but just saying a lot has changed already in how we think about this team and how this team is being thought of nationally. Let's talk Lynx basketball with Kent Youngblood from the Star Tribune. Playoffs open Sunday, Kent. Lynx against Phoenix. Lynx locked up the number 2 seed with about as impressive of a stretch as I can remember. They've won a ton of games since the Olympic break. They went on the road, beat New York and Connecticut. They've taken care of all their business right now, and now here we go into the playoffs.
Yeah, 14 out of their last 15.
It's amazing. They're
heading into Thursday's game.
Right? And that game matters, but it doesn't. You want to finish off strong. You want to win your last home game, but they are locked into the 2 seed. They know they're going to be playing Phoenix. Old friend, maybe old nemesis, Diana Taurasi. How do you see that series? How do you see that series shaking out?
Well, they were 3-1 against Phoenix this year, all three victories were by double digits. Their one loss is when Kalia Copper went crazy and scored 30 some points and hit a three at the buzzer basically to beat him. I like the matchup. I think they can score. I don't think they play great defense. The interesting thing is, I wonder if it's not the last time local fans will be able to see Diana Taurasi in Target Center.
She's
And
hinted at that a little bit, right? She hasn't really come out and said it, but it's
no,
possible.
the word is she's considering it, and I'm not saying she's certainly capable of coming back, but you wonder about that.
You do. Storied career for her, obviously. I don't love the playoff format for the first round. I think it's kind of I know that for travel purposes, but to do the it's still two home and then one away, right? Is that how the
Yeah,
format goes this year?
it seems like a vestige of the commercial flight era, but
Yes.
um, I don't think the Lynx have any interest in going to the desert.
Yeah, I don't think they want to go to the desert either. I mean, that's what happened last year. Connecticut had to come here and win game 3 after the Lynx kind of surprised them in game 2. Now Connecticut was the better team and they did it, but it does feel like a little bit of a I don't know. It's a tenuous format. It's definitely home court, and you can sweep and then have your kind of have a little time to get set and rested. But it does seem like it's a little treacherous if you don't take care of your business. But you would expect them to take care of their business in this
Yeah,
series.
and on the one hand, it's such a better format than the one they tried for a few years ago, where the top two teams got buys. Although I think
Yes.
they probably would have liked that at this point.
Right.
And then there were a couple of single elimination games. I think 1-8, 2-7, etc. is the way to go. I think I'd like to see. I think I'd like to see every round best of five. I actually would like to see the first two rounds best of five and then have a best of seven finals. I think the league is to that point.
Why couldn't you? You should. I think they're ready for that. I think this it warrants it. The games are good enough. I mean, my gosh, this year in the WNBA, I mean, obviously you've got the Caitlin Clark effect, you've got some of those stories, but like if this was the year you started paying attention to the league, this has been a treat because this has been some great teams, some great games.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's no question that this rookie class has upped the interest significantly. But if you look at the top four seeds at this moment, there's very, very little rookie contribution to any of those teams. The best teams in the league are veteran teams who have played to their strengths this year. And it's not, I mean, now Indiana has been very good since a slow start.
Right.
I just think it's interesting that the narrative has been rookies all year, and the top 3 or 4 teams are all veteran teams.
That's a great point. I mean, the Lynx by locking up the 2 seed avoid Caitlin Clark and the Fever, at least in the first round. They could potentially see them in the second round if Indiana was to pull an upset, but they've matched up pretty well against them. Even as Indiana has played better and Caitlin Clark has, come on down the stretch the last half, 2/3 of the year. That's another team that the Lynx have had no problem with in the last, 15, 16 games.
No, but if they pull the upset, most likely they play New York in the second round.
Okay. Oh, because
Yeah,
did they reseed at that
yeah,
point? Okay,
yeah.
got it. Okay.
So I would think that the only way they would play wouldn't a finals against Caitlin Clark
Oh,
sell?
gee. Sell a few tickets. I'm sure like a tiny part of them was like, yeah, wouldn't be bad to be the 3 seed and have Indiana come here for 2 guaranteed home games. But yeah, you're right. It could be.
If you had a meeting over at Mayo Clinic Square and had the business people on one side and the coaching
Yes.
staff on the other, it'd be interesting to hear that conversation.
Yeah, I don't think the coaching staff necessarily would have wanted that, but I think they would have felt good about. I think they've got to feel good about anybody, right? At this point, which gets into deeper kind of playoff talk. Like this went from a season that was surprisingly good at the start. We're like, hey, can they sustain this? To, hey, yeah, this is a good team. Maybe they can contend. To, they are a bona fide favorite to win a championship. Maybe not the favorite. I think you still got to give that status to New York, and I think Vegas still has the playoff pedigree and the stars to get it done. Connecticut's very good, but the Lynx are right there. They are not constructed the same way as those other teams, but they are right there. This is a legitimate chance for a championship.
What's interesting is, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but you kept waiting for the other shoe to fall with this team. Like, not that they would collapse, but they would become a pretty good team,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then they beat Washington back to back out of the Olympic break, and you're thinking, well, of course they should beat Washington. But then they have back to back wins home and away against Las Vegas.
Yes.
And it's like, whoa. And then they host Indiana, which is the hottest team in the league at that time, and beat them. And then they go on the road and beat New York and Connecticut in two games in 3 nights. You can't, I mean, there are no other shoes. They're a good team.
No, they're a very good team. Now, you mentioned the 2 Washington wins, and it was right after that they traded for Hines Allen, right? Maisha Hines Allen.
Yeah, not long after. That's a huge addition.
Yeah,
huge.
That seems like it kind of gave them the certain reinforcement that they needed at kind of a perfect time. And it's been kind of a I don't say perfect, but a very deft roster assembly by Cheryl Reeve, kind of understanding what kinds of players Cheryl Reeve likes to coach.
Well, after the victory against New York, Reeve had a pretty good quote after the game. She said, we're not a super team, we're a collective.
Yeah.
And they are a collective. And actually, I was talking with Washington general manager Mike Thibault today. And the interesting thing, if you're game playing against the Lynx, it's a little different than any of the other maybe top teams. I mean, if you're getting ready for New York, you say we got to stop Brianna Stewart, and we got to stop Sabrina Ionescu and probably Jonquel Jones. If you're getting ready for Las Vegas, you say we got to stop Asia Wilson, Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum.
Yeah.
If you're getting ready for the Lynx, you're getting ready for Nafisa Collier, and then who are the other 4 are going to jump up on any given night? It's like you can't focus on 3 and not guard the other 2 because they'll go off. Yeah. Every one of the other starters, other than Fee, are capable of a 20-point night, particularly 3-point shooting. And some nights, like last couple nights, it's been Collier, right?
Right.
Some nights it's been McBride, some nights Smith. It's an interesting collective in the sense that you never know who's going to join Fee atop the stat list.
Well, and some of that speaks to the improvement that some of these players have made internally. I mean, Bridget Carlton's had a tremendous year.
She got my vote for most improved player.
Yeah, I think and the cherry on top of that was the 3-pointer, the deep 3 she made to beat
34 feet.
That's the official marker. I think you and Reeve had a little back and forth at that. I don't think it was 34, but it was Caitlin Clark kind of 3, wasn't it?
It was just inside the logo, right?
Yes. So it was far out there, and she stepped right into it with confidence, and it was probably the best look they were going to get.
She's had 9 games, I believe, with 3 or more made threes since the Olympic break. But she's become a legitimate. And her confidence level is at another place because now she's running people off the closeout and taking easy 2s.
Right.
Her game it's a totally different thing now than what she's been the first 5 years of her career.
And she's a big reason, not the only reason. McBride and others are a reason, but they lead the league in 3-point shooting, and that was one thing that I thought, 20 games in, 15, however many, when they were shooting the lights out, and I was like, okay, that's always been a regressive stat, right? 3-point shooting can be a regressive stat. A hot shooting team can start looking immortal when they stop making those shots, and they maybe cooled off a little bit, but they never really stopped making shots, and it's because they're so unselfish with the ball. They're getting good shots all the time.
They lead the league in assists. They stopped hitting threes when Collier was hurt right before the break, and teams could guard the perimeter without really being held to account for doing so. It's such an interesting dynamic, Collier is, you got to have a superstar to win in this league. But the Lynx are doing it with just one superstar. And they're doing, and the most overused term I think in all of sports is chemistry. But in this case, I think this team has chemistry. I
No,
mean, you
yeah,
can tell. I don't think you can play consistently the best defense in the league from start to finish without a cohesiveness that transcends just being on the court together.
no, I think it's 100% right. And you mentioned Collier. You already mentioned Carlton as a candidate, your vote for most improved player. Given that Collier is doing all this as kind of a lone superstar, where does she fall in the MVP talk?
She'll finish second. It's kind of
To
hard
Wilson
to
again?
vote for Wilson when she scores more points than anybody ever has in a season. I think she'll be the leader in the clubhouse for Defensive Player of the Year. She'll obviously be first team All WNBA. Um, McBride's an interesting, everybody thinks McBride 3-point shooting, but because Carlton's ascension, I mean, they asked her to cover the other team's best perimeter player every single night. I mean, she covered Clark, she covers Jackie Young, she covers Sabrina Ionescu, she covers her contribution to that team on the defensive end. There have been times when I thought she basically helped the team win a game and she scored 6 points.
Sure.
I'm going to vote for her for all defense, I think.
Okay.
I think she deserves it.
Coach has to be in the running for Coach of the Year. It's pretty obvious, right? Runaway winner, right?
You can't, considering that much of the votership, much of the electorate is people who prognosticate, and everybody prognosticating they would struggle to make the playoffs. It'd be pretty two-faced not to acknowledge the fact that they're the number 2 seed. Although I did have them as a top 4 team before
you
the season started.
Yes, you did. I remember that. I remember you saying that, and I was like, "Come on, that's not." And nobody's saying that. But they were quietly confident. I think you were listening to them and picking up on what they liked from camp. They seemed like they were like, "Okay, we got a lot of new players, we got a lot of veterans, but this is all coming together a little faster than maybe it had any right to."
Right. And then Alana Smith was just lights out coming out of the break. She's cooled off a bit, but she still plays really good defense. She's a really big part of their defense. But I mean, nobody could have predicted that Carlton would make this jump. I mean,
No.
Diamond got hurt. Carlton started playing like that. And now Diamond can't get back on the court,
No.
And then the addition of Hines Allen was big because they struggled defensively in the post when they had to sit Smith and or Collier. And now, at the very least, they can hold their own.
Right.
She's a undersized but very strong defender.
So, do all these ingredients does this add up to a championship? Is playoff basketball just different, and they're going to find a team that just maybe played at 90% a lot of the year and now has an extra gear? How would you kind of suss out the playoffs and their ultimate kind of destination?
Well, I think it comes down to matchups. There are certain teams, certain styles that the Lynx are very good against, and some certain styles that they're not. I think they struggle against Connecticut sometimes because they're a big, powerful team. I think they match up actually pretty well with New York because New York plays very much the way they do. It's just a matter of who's going to play the better defense on a given night. I'd watch out for Las Vegas because they had 4 Olympians. They were clearly tired coming out of the break. They stumbled a little bit. But now Jackie Young is back on the top of the form, and they're looking pretty tough. If I was going to, well, I don't bet, but I think in my mind, Vegas is the favorite. The Lynx are the second favorite, and the New York is third.
Interesting. Okay, which is not how the seeding goes, but seeding doesn't always mean everything, and then Vegas certainly has the pedigree and the stars to get it done. Well, should be a great playoffs. We got to start with Phoenix first, so we'll see. We'll see how that series goes. But yeah, by far have exceeded. I mean, their over/under this year was 16.5. Speaking of betting, like we don't bet, but 16.5 in a 40-game season. And maybe you can say that was low. That was whoever made that line doesn't watch enough WNBA games. But that was the number to beat, and they're going to close to double that this year.
Well, I have to say that I remember, as they moved along in the off season and they get hide him in a trade, I'm like, that's a nice little move. And then they signed Courtney Williams and Alana Smith. And I'm like, Courtney can score. And I didn't know a lot about Smith because her first real breakout year was last year. And I had no idea that Williams would so willingly take the playmaking role, which she has. She had 12 assists in Connecticut. I did not realize how good a defender Smith is for somebody who doesn't have a great vertical leap. She defends the rim really, really well. And I did not see Carlton making this jump. So it does look very deft. That's the word you use. It does look like a lot of thought went into the assembly of this roster, and the 4-out style really benefits Collier because then she can go off the dribble against bigger people. They have a couple of bigs and off and wing people who are really good passers, and Reed's best offense has always had that. So I don't know. There's not a whole lot of like top tier playoff experience on this team.
No.
I think Hines Allen is the only person in that room that has the ring.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see how they handle the challenge.
It will be indeed.
But the good thing is that now they'll be at home to start the second round if they get there.
Yes, that is very true. The possibility is there. It starts Sunday. Star Tribune will have it covered. Kent Youngblood, of course. Appreciate you joining me today. Follow his coverage. And Kent, we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Great stuff from Kent. We recorded that segment before Thursday's game, knowing that Thursday's game was not of great consequence. They were locked into the 2 seed. They did lose. So final record for the season, 30-10. Way exceeding expectations this year. I don't think there's any doubt about how far they've surpassed expectations. Now the only question is, can they keep it going in the playoffs? It's fantasy football time on Daily Delivery. Star Tribune Sports editor Ryan Kostecka joins me right now. Ground rules, Ryan. We had some fun last week kind of talking about fantasy football, but now we're going to do something about it. So we're each going to pick 3 players every week, little head-to-head competition, a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver. And the only caveat is that the player we pick has to be outside of the projected top 10 scoring at their respective positions in NFL.com rankings. So projected scoring. So here we go. I'm going to give you the first pick. We're going to do kind of like it's not like a traditional snake draft, Ryan, because we've only got 2 people, but we're going to do it like that. How do you feel about the format?
I like the format. It's that fine line of, do you go running back or receiver first? Because as you know, your first pick, it means a lot. It sets the stage. So I'm kind of nervous with where I'm going to go with this, but I feel good. But I mean, then again, as I'm looking at my list, I'm kind of rethinking it as well. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Well, you have the first pick. You can pick a quarterback,
Okay.
You can pick a running back, or you can pick a wide receiver, but you have the first pick, and then I'm taking the next 2. And it's kind of wide open. You really can take anybody. There's only 2 of us.
Yeah.
So and it's a 6-player draft, not like a 140-player draft. So I think you got some people to work with. So who are you going to take number 1?
Sure. Well, with the first pick, but first off, I get it to 2 of us, but I mean, I want to beat you. I'm not going to lie.
Of course you do.
So,
Every week.
Definitely want to get this right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go wide receiver, my first pick, and I'm going to stay true to my own personal fantasy football team, which I'm ready to just quit in, by the way. But I'm going Mike Evans against the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
I think he is going to have a nice bounce back week. I really do like it. They are home, so I like that concept of it. I do like what Baker Mayfield's doing. I think the emergence of Chris Godwin has been big for them. And I think Evans is going to be more of a deep threat, and I think Mike Evans is going to have a big week, and Tampa Bay's going to get the win.
I like it. He was on my watch list as I looked over the landscape of who I could potentially pick. So that I think that's a good pick. Mike Evans has just been kind of like a fantasy mainstay for years now. Just a guy you can count on. Really helped Baker Mayfield last year.
Exactly. And I think, you look at he's going to go over 1,000 yards. He's going to get, 80, 90 catches every single season.
Right.
Last week he had a great first week, down last week. I think he responds this week. If he kind of returns to the norm, I'm fine with that. I think it's great value in kind of the format we're doing. So, yeah, I'm going to take Mike Evans, and I think he's going to do well for me.
I like it. I'm going to go running back with my first pick. All that doesn't matter all that much because I can take 2 in a row here. I am going to take Derrick Henry of Baltimore going at Dallas. Dallas had a little trouble against the run last week against Alvin Kamara. Our old friend Mike Zimmer was supposed to fix all that. Mark Craig's story indicated that was a big thing that they were looking forward to. They had all those problems last year in the playoff game against the Packers. They hire Mike Zimmer. He's kind of got a old school mentality. We're going to stop the run. Didn't stop the run last week. Derrick Henry's a hard guy to stop. So I'm taking Derrick Henry at Dallas as my first pick. Second pick, I'm going to go wide receiver just because I feel like my quarterback's going to be available. I kind of got a sleeper at quarterback. So I'm going to go wide receiver here, and I'm going to take Chris Olave from the Saints. I think he's like 15th in the projected scoring this week. The Saints have been putting up big numbers. It's a little risky because I don't know if we should always count on a Derek Carr-led offense to put up 40-plus points a game, but they're on a roll right now. Until proven otherwise, I'll ride that. So I'm taking Chris Olave as my wide receiver.
I like that. I like both picks. Derrick Henry is my number 2, mainly because you have to have him on there because I agree with everything you said, but I had a feeling you would take him. Olave, I did not have Olave. He was my number 4. So I do like the Olave pick, but like I said, like you kind of said a little bit, the Derek Carr-led offense, 40 points a game, I'm not sure if that's going to hold up. And
Probably
this could be the week it does it, but also it could be the week that works. So I like it.
You never know until it doesn't.
No,
I thought Harrison was on my list too. I thought about taking Marvin because he's 11th on the rankings. So I was like, maybe I'll be kicking myself once Sunday rolls around. All right, what do you got? What do you got in your last 2 picks?
Okay, so this sort of obviously the order doesn't really matter for me. I am going to go with kind of a sleeper, and for what we're going to talk about later, this is actually for my NFC North player potentially, but I'm going to take him. I'm going to go David Montgomery of the Lions.
He's on my list. He was my NFC North player too. So now I got to find somebody else for my NFC North player. This is unbelievable. Okay,
Perfect.
Go on.
Now the reason being I'm going with David Montgomery is I think Jahmyr Gibbs is very good, but I think Detroit. They lost last week. They're going to get back to the identity. They're going to want to just ram it down your throat. I do think when they get close to the goal line, they're going to do what they did best, and they're going to give it to Montgomery. He might not, he might only rush for 60, 70 yards, but I think he's going to get 2 tutties in there. So I think he's going to get great value. I like that pick. With Arizona coming off a win also and Detroit coming off a loss, that's a game that's going to be really exciting. Arizona's feisty, so I'm going to go with David Montgomery. And quarterback, I'm curious to see what you go with quarterback. I'm going to go with Geno Smith against Miami.
Okay.
That's why I really like Geno. I like what he's doing there. He's got 2 proven – he actually got 3 proven receivers with DK, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then Tyler Lockett. They're going against Miami. Miami has struggled a little bit. I mean, they just gave up how many points to Josh Allen in Buffalo? So
a lot. Several
I do like that. And, Geno at home. I think the home factor plays that crowd in Seattle. They're absolutely insane. So I like that. I'm going to go with Geno for my quarterback against Miami. So I like my 3.
I like your 3. This is going to get personal because I didn't realize I kind of forgot about who you root for, but my quarterback is Justin Fields from the Pittsburgh Steelers going against the Chargers.
You would do this
week.
To me.
I didn't even think about it until just now. So you root for the Chargers. I'm picking Justin Fields. I like him to, obviously we know he's not a great quarterback, but you get all the combination of things. When things go well for Justin Fields, he can put up a 25-point game because he might rush for 70 yards. He might get in the end zone with a rushing touchdown, might throw for one. Something like he's got a lot of diversity to his game in terms of how he can help you. He can also put up 4 points. Let's be honest. But he's been okay so far. And I'm gonna have him on a big game against your Chargers. So that's my 3. I've got Yeah, I've got Henry, Olave, and Justin Fields. Fields is 24th in the rankings. I'm kind of out on a limb on this, but I'm going for it right here.
You definitely are on a limb with it, but I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily mad at it because I don't know how good the Chargers actually are. And I don't know how good that defense actually is. I mean, it's a first time DC. They're completely revamping things. I mean, they have the big names, they got the talent, but can they put it together? It's still a new system. So I low-key like your Justin Fields pick. I really do. I mean, obviously I hope, you lose in this regard.
You hope for many reasons that's
I do.
Yeah.
But I really understand why you go there. And like you said, if Justin Fields he doesn't turn over, he just picks up yards with his legs. It'll be really curious to see, where that goes. And, if you know anything about college football, Michigan under Harbaugh and Minter, they did struggle traditionally with mobile quarterbacks. That was one of their big Achilles heels for years. So I'm curious how that translates to the next level, but I can understand. I can see it a little bit.
I kind of like this. Maybe when we do this in the future, we should have one guy has to be outside the top 20 because it's kind of fun when it gets a little spicy.
I do like that.
Yeah, maybe
I do like that.
We'll go one guy outside the top 20 because then you got to really stretch for somebody that's not. Most of the guys we picked aren't, obviously they're not the best of the best this week, but they're still, pretty formidable fantasy players. So we'll see how it goes. Now we're going to pick one NFC North guy every week, and that's more just for fun, just kind of like giving you guys a tip or a kind of pointers because that's the division we do and should know the best. You like Montgomery? I like him a lot too. I think he's on a big week. I think the Lions, like you said, got to get back to what they do best. I think a sneaky play if you're kind of down at quarterback right now might be Sam Darnold. So I'm gonna say Sam Darnold. He's got 2 touchdowns each of the first 2 weeks. He can run for 30 or 40 yards. Now the Texans are a tough matchup, but that is at home. That helps him a little bit. He's been very good so far in a sneaky good fantasy play, especially if you're down to like a QB2. Say you got, Tua got hurt, someone else is not playing for you. So I'm going to go Darnold as my NFC North quarterback. Maybe I'm drinking the purple Kool-Aid a little too much right now, but they're 2-0. They're pretty good right now, and Darnold is a big reason why.
I'll join you on that purple Kool-Aid in the sense that Darnold was my backup quarterback if you took Geno. Okay, I'm with you. Everything you just said. Yeah. He's on my list right here. He's number 2. I think everything you just said, I think Houston might have been reading their press clippings a little bit after last year's season. Great year. They struggled with Chicago, and Chicago just did not look very good.
No.
So that game was a lot closer than it should have been. Now Houston's coming into Minnesota. Like the Darnold plays well at home, and it looks like Jefferson's going to be back playing. Looks like Aaron Jones is going to be back playing. I do like that pick for you. That's a sneaky good one. I'm going to stay true to the Lions, which it pains me to say because some of my family members, I love them to death, but are diehard Lions fans, but they're the worst fans, as you can imagine, because they're Lions fans.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Amon-Ra.
Okay.
I think that, like I talked about, the Lions are going to get back to doing what they do. They're going to run the ball with Montgomery and Gibbs, and then they're going to hit Amon-Ra. I think he's going to have a big week. I see 8-9 catches, 130, 140 yards, and it's a touchdown. Okay. I think he's going to shine, especially going up against, the Arizona defense. He's so elusive in the slot, and he's so good at getting open and finding the holes, and he's going to keep drives alive. So I think the Lions have a big week. I think they get the win, and I think Amon-Ra and Montgomery are a big reason why.
I think you're probably right. Well, we'll see who's the most right next week. It'll be fun. We can go back on what we did and obviously spin forward to the next week going forward. Yeah. Ryan, best of luck, but not too much. And we'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate it.
I hope my picks are good. We'll see. We'll recap it next week. We'll take a look at it. We'll see who won. We'll do it again every week, giving you guys a chance to maybe pick up some knowledge, pick up some entertainment. So that'll be a fun new feature every week of the football season here on Daily Delivery. Thursday games won't be included since it's a Friday segment, but that's okay. I don't pay that much attention to fantasy until the weekend anyway. You got to make sure you're not, playing a guy who's injured on Thursday. But other than that, the bulk of the work comes over the weekend. So hoping my team does well, hoping your teams do well also. Let us finish with the cooler. Someone probably not on your fantasy team. This was the saddest thing that I read all day yesterday. Bryce Young benched by the Panthers. We already knew that. but he's been spending the week on the scout team. That's where Bryce Young is, the number 1 overall pick into the 2023 draft, who's been awful. He's got better support around him this year, and he's been even worse. Said Young has spent the past 2 days running the scout team. This is from the ESPN story. Defensive coordinator Hiro Ivero said the 5'10", 204-pound Young has done a great job of playing the role of Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew. Number 1 overall pick has been relegated to the scout team, trying to emulate a marginal starter, obviously very good football player, but a marginal starter in this league. That is not what the Panthers ever had in mind when they mortgaged their future for this guy. We'll see if he can turn this thing around. We'll see if there's something left in the tank for him. Maybe it's got to be a fresh start. I don't know. But man, this thing went south early, and a good reminder of how kind of fragile and delicate the draft can be. That reminds me too, Vikings Texans on Sunday. CJ Stroud, who was picked after Young in the 2023 draft, had a great rookie year. Is even better now. The Texans won the division last year. Everybody thought Bryce Young. A lot of people thought Bryce Young was the better prospect. Stroud comes in, does everything people thought Bryce Young would do. It just shows you don't really know until they get into the league. That will do it for me today. Should be a great show with Royce on Monday. Man, what a jam-packed weekend. Twins at Red Sox. Vikings against the Texans. An hour after that ends, like I said, same part of downtown, just across town at Target Center. Lynx at the start of the playoffs. Gophers, Iowa on Saturday. Didn't even talk about that much today, but that should be a terrific game as well. Going to be so much for us to get to. So until then, enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back at it again with Royce on Monday.